They say one small decision can change everything. For me, it was answering a text that said, "Can you take a look at my uncle's car this weekend?" It came from Jordan, a guy I'd known since high school. We weren't best friends exactly, more like orbiting planets who crossed paths often enough to stay connected. I worked at a local garage and fixed cars for extra cash on the side. Jordan knew that. He also knew I rarely said no to him, even when I should have. The plan was simple. Head out to his uncle's place on the edge of town, check the car, maybe hang out for a bit, then leave. But from the second I stepped onto the gravel driveway, I could feel something shift, something small but heavy, like the moment before a summer storm when the air goes still and thick. His uncle's place was out in the countryside, surrounded by rolling fields and trees that hummed with the sound of cicadas. There was a stillness to it all, an unspoken promise of isolation, of space. Space where things could rise to the surface, things I'd buried. I hadn't seen Jordan in months, not since he left town for a welding job out west. Now he was back. For a break, tan from the sun, hair a little longer, and wearing that dumb faded blue tank top that used to annoy me. Except now it didn't. Now, it tugged at something under my skin. "Didn't think you'd actually show up," he grinned, leaning against the porch railing like he owned the place. His eyes scanned me in that lazy, familiar way that always made me feel both seen and nervous. "Didn't think you'd still have that wreck of a car," I shot back, trying to sound casual. But my heart had already picked up a beat. He laughed, low and easy. "Touché." It wasn't the car that made me nervous. It was the way he looked at me, like I was more than just the guy who knew his way around an engine. And maybe, just maybe, the way I looked back wasn't so different anymore. Told myself I was here to work, but a part of me, quiet and persistent, wondered if I was really here for something else. I met Jordan in sophomore year, in a high school shop class where the buzz of saws and scent of machine oil masked most of our awkward silences. We weren't instant friends. He was louder, messier, always cracking jokes that got him kicked. Out of class, I was quieter, kept to myself, liked the way engines made sense in a world that didn't. But somehow, we stuck. He'd ask me to help with projects, I'd let him copy my notes, and slowly it turned into hanging out after class, grabbing fast food, late-night drives with music turned up so loud we didn't have to talk. Jordan was the kind of person who made space for you without making a big deal about it. He never pried, never asked why I seemed tense sometimes, or why I hesitated when someone asked about dating. He just accepted it. We kept in touch after high school, even when our paths forked. Me staying local to work in the garage, him bouncing around the state chasing contract jobs and adventure. He was always sending dumb photos of rusty tools, weird roadside diners, or a dog he met that reminded him of one we once almost adopted together. "I swear," I muttered, trying to get a look under the hood of his uncle's old pickup. "This thing hasn't had a tune-up since the Stone Age." Jordan laughed behind me. "Hey, it runs, mostly." "Barely," I replied, pulling off my gloves. "I'm gonna need some tools from the garage. Is it unlocked?" "Yep." "Uncle's out of town till Sunday. Mi casa es su casa." That made me pause. The plan was to work for the afternoon and head back before dark. But now he was casually suggesting I stay. He must have noticed my hesitation because he added, "You don't have to crash or anything. I just meant tools, drinks, whatever. Chill." "Right," I said, but my pulse had already quickened. The garage was cramped but well stocked. As I rummaged for the socket set, Jordan leaned in the doorway, sipping from a can of Coke. He tossed me one without asking if I wanted it. He always did that, small things that showed he remembered, like how I hated energy drinks or that I preferred cherry cola. "Remember that summer we tried to fix up that old Mustang behind your dad's place?" he said, popping the tab on his can. "Yeah," I smirked. "And we broke the radiator and almost set the thing on fire." "Details," he grinned. "Still one of the best summers." It was, I admitted, my voice softening without meaning to. I glanced at him, and he was already looking at me. Not in a dramatic way, just watching. His smile faltered for half a second, like he was thinking something but didn't say it. It was nothing, and yet it wasn't. Later that evening, I was still working under the truck when Jordan called out, "By the way, hope you don't mind, but I may have accidentally broken the bed in the spare room." Like, it literally collapsed. I slid out from under the car and blinked up at him. "Seriously?" He scratched the back of his neck, clearly not as innocent as he sounded. "Look, it was old, and I was jumping on it." I laughed. "You're such a child." "Guilty. But now there's just the couch or the guest room, which, has one bed. Queen-sized. Plenty of room." I swallowed, suddenly aware of the cooling air, the way the sun was dipping below the horizon, washing everything. In gold, right? I guess we'll figure it out. Jordan gave a crooked smile. "We always do." As he walked back toward the porch, his arm brushed mine, a casual contact, nothing major. But I felt it, the warmth, the way my skin buzzed where he touched me. I told myself not to read into it, but I already was. By the time the sun dipped low behind the trees and the sky turned a dusky violet, I had the engine apart and half the tools scattered on the garage floor. A couple of parts needed ordering, nothing major, but it meant I wouldn't be finishing. Tonight. "Well," I said, wiping my hands on a rag, "she's gonna live, but not tonight. You'll need to give her at least another day or two." Jordan stood a few feet away, arms crossed, leaning against the garage frame. "Guess that means you're staying the night then." There was something in his voice, neutral, maybe too neutral, like he didn't want to sound too eager, or like he already knew I'd say yes. I hesitated. "If that couch is as lumpy as it looks, I might wake up with a broken back." He smirked. "Told you. Guest room's better. Bigger. Warmer." He wasn't teasing, not exactly. But there was that look again, just a flicker, like he was testing the waters. I didn't answer right away. My stomach felt weird, tight, and fluttering all at once. That night, the house was quiet, except for the soft hum of crickets outside and the occasional groan of wood shifting in the walls. We watched a movie we'd both seen a dozen times before, sitting side by side on the couch, a blanket thrown casually across both our laps. Somewhere during the second act, Jordan's leg brushed mine. Just once. I didn't move. Neither did he. He reached for the popcorn between us, his fingers brushing my hand. It could have been nothing. Could have been everything. When the credits rolled and the lights stayed low, he turned to me, voice quiet. "You still sleep on your side, right?" I blinked. "What?" "For the bed," he said, like it was obvious. "Just want to make sure we don't end up kicking each other in the face." "Oh," I breathed and laughed nervously. "Yeah, still a side sleeper." He nodded like that meant something, then stood and stretched, his shirt lifting just enough to reveal the soft curve of his lower back. I looked away too quickly and probably too obviously. The bedroom felt smaller than I remembered. The queen-sized bed wasn't huge, and the room was cool from the open window. Jordan tossed an extra pillow at me and kicked off his socks. Still, "Think you can handle one night without freaking out?" he asked, teasing but soft around the edges. I shrugged, doing my best to seem unaffected as I pulled off my hoodie. "Depends on whether you snore." He didn't. Not that it mattered. We lay there in the quiet, both of us facing the ceiling at first, not touching, not speaking. My heart felt like it was working overtime, thudding in my chest like it might give me away. Every part of me was hyper-aware. The way the mattress dipped slightly toward the middle, the faint rustle of sheets as he shifted, the warmth radiating from his side of the bed. I turned on my side, facing away. Seconds later, I heard him turn too, mirroring me. I wondered if he was looking at the back of my neck the way I wanted to look at him. "Hey," he said softly. "Yeah." He paused. I could hear the inhale before he spoke. "You ever think about just leaving town, starting over?" His voice was serious now, the kind he used when something mattered. "Sometimes," I admitted. "Why?" "Dunno." He shifted again. "Just feels like everything's moving, and I'm stuck. Or maybe I keep moving to avoid stuff. I don't know." The honesty in his voice hit me harder than I expected. I wanted to turn and face him, but I didn't. Instead, I whispered, "What are you avoiding?" There was a long pause. "Maybe the same stuff you are," he said. My breath caught. I felt it in my chest, in my throat, in the stillness that followed. I turned then, slowly, and found him already facing me. His eyes were open in the dark, catching just a sliver of moonlight. He didn't say anything else. Neither did I. But the silence between us felt heavy with things neither of us had ever said out loud. He reached up and scratched the back of his neck, an old nervous habit. His elbow brushed mine. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I wanted to reach for him. Wanted to say something, anything, to break the space between us. But fear clamped down on my chest like a vice. What if I was wrong? What if he didn't mean it like that? What if everything I was feeling was one-sided, and this whole night was just him being his usual open, comfortable self? He moved a little. Closer. Just enough that his knee bumped into mine. Then he stopped. I didn't pull away. The air felt electric. Too quiet, too charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. My fingers curled around the edge of the pillow, tight. I kept telling myself to sleep, to forget this feeling. But every part of me was alive with it, and I couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't avoiding something anymore. Maybe he was waiting for me to stop avoiding it too. Neither of us slept much that night, but we both pretended we did. In the morning, Jordan was already in the kitchen when I got up, barefoot and shirtless, standing over a pan of sizzling eggs like this was just any other Saturday. The smell of coffee filled the house, grounding me even as my mind buzzed with everything unspoken from the night before. He didn't look at me right away, just slid a mug across the counter like it was routine, like we hadn't spent hours lying. Inches apart, neither of us daring to close the gap. "Hope you're cool with scrambled," he said, cracking another egg with one hand, like it was nothing. "Yeah, thanks." I took the coffee and tried to act normal, but my stomach twisted with nerves. Every small glance, every word, every silence felt like part of some strange game we didn't know the rules to. After breakfast, we ended up outside, sitting on the tailgate of his uncle's truck. The morning sun was warm on our skin, and the breeze carried the faint scent of cut grass and old pine. It should have been peaceful. It wasn't. Jordan swung his legs, letting his heels knock gently against the bumper. He was quiet for a while, unusually so. I kept waiting for him to crack a joke or say something sarcastic, anything to break the silence. But he didn't. Instead, he said, "I lied last night." I looked over. "About what?" He met my eyes, then looked away again, squinting into the trees like they held the answer. "About the bed. It wasn't broken." That threw me. "Then why, He laughed once, hollow and self-conscious. "I didn't want you to sleep on the couch." My heart skipped. He still wasn't looking at me. His fingers fidgeted with the hem of his shirt, his knee bouncing with nerves he was clearly trying to hide. "Why didn't you just say that?" I asked, my voice quieter now. He shrugged. "Didn't know if you'd stay." The silence stretched again. This one felt heavier. My pulse was loud in my ears. I could have laughed it off, could have joked like we always did, but I didn't. Instead, I said, I wouldn't have gone anywhere. Jordan finally looked at me, and something shifted. His walls, always easy, always teasing, slipped for a second. I saw all the things he didn't say in that look. The fear, the hope, the ache I'd felt mirrored in his eyes. "I don't know what this is," he admitted. I've been thinking about you. A lot. More than I should, probably." His voice cracked slightly at the end, like it cost him something to say it out loud. My chest tightened, both from relief and panic. "I thought maybe I was just lonely," he went on, stumbling through the words. "But it's not that. It's not just missing a friend or being bored or needing someone around. It's you. It's always been you." I didn't answer right away. I couldn't. My throat felt thick, and all the words I'd buried for years clawed their way up, fighting to be heard. I looked down at my hands, at the faint grease under my nails, the cuts from working too fast yesterday. My whole life had been about fixing things, cars, engines, messes other people made. But I'd never figured out how to fix this. This thing between us I'd always pretended didn't exist. "I used to tell myself it was one-sided," I said finally. "That you were just being nice or friendly or whatever. And I convinced myself I could live with that. Just being close to you was enough." He leaned in, just a little, barely noticeable unless you were watching for it. "I didn't know how to say it," I admitted. "How to say that being around you made everything else quiet, that I felt seen when you were around. Like maybe I wasn't just some guy trying to survive the next day." Jordan reached out slowly, letting his hand rest near mine on the tailgate. Fingers splayed, close, but not touching. "You're not just some guy," he said. "Not to me." The way he said it, soft, steady, cut straight through me. I didn't know what I was more afraid of, that he meant it, or that he didn't. "I'm scared," I whispered, "that this will ruin everything." He nodded. "Me too." We sat there, both of us quiet, both of us shaking, even though the sun was warm and the world looked perfectly calm. Then, slowly, Jordan moved his hand until his pinky brushed against mine. It wasn't much, barely a touch, but it sent a shock through my whole body. I turned my hand, hesitated, and then wrapped my fingers around his. He let out a breath. One of those breaths you don't realize you've been holding for years. "God," he muttered with a nervous laugh, eyes dropping to our joined hands. "I've wanted to do that for so long." "You have no idea," I said. He looked up again, and for a second, everything stopped. The tension, the fear, the years of silence between us. It all went still. Then, like gravity had been pulling us the whole time, he leaned in. There was hesitation, just a breath's worth of space between us. I saw the question in his eyes, asking if this was okay, if I wanted this too. I answered by closing that last inch, pressing my lips to his in the quietest, softest kiss I've ever known. It wasn't perfect. Our noses bumped. My hand trembled. But it was real. When we pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. Both of us smiling like idiots. "I guess the bed wasn't the only thing you lied about," I teased, voice shaking a little. He grinned. Guilty. We sat there for a long time, fingers laced, leaning into each other like the world outside didn't exist, and for the first time in forever, I wasn't pretending anymore. After everything was said, after the kiss and the quiet that followed, neither of us seemed in any rush to move. The truck's tailgate had gone cold beneath us, and the late morning sun had climbed higher, casting soft shadows through the trees. But it was like time bent itself around us, giving us this pocket of stillness to just exist in. Jordan kept playing with my fingers, not in a showy, dramatic way, just tracing slow patterns across my knuckles, like he couldn't believe he was allowed to now. I couldn't stop watching him. The way his jaw tightened when he was thinking. The way his eyelashes caught the light. I'd seen his face 1,000 times, but it felt new now, like I was finally seeing what had been in front of me all along. "So," he said after a long pause, a slow grin tugging at the corner of his mouth, "does this mean I finally get to call you mine? Or do I have to fill out a form or something?" I huffed a laugh, bumping my shoulder into his. "That depends. Do you snore?" "Because I'm not signing up for nightly chainsaw sessions." He smirked, mock offended. "I do not snore." "Liar," I said. "You did in high school. That one time at Matt's cabin, you kept the entire floor awake." "That was allergies," he said, raising an eyebrow. "And for the record, you hog all the blankets." I rolled my eyes, but I didn't pull my hand away. "Guess we'll have to figure it out. Blanket strategy meetings, sleep trials." He tilted his head toward me, the teasing fading just a little. "We'll figure it out. Whatever this is, whatever it becomes, we'll work through it." It was such a simple thing to say, so steady. And I didn't realize how much I needed to hear it until he said it out loud. "It's not just going to be easy," I said quietly. "There's a lot we haven't talked about. People might say things. Your uncle, he's not an idiot," Jordan said, more serious now. "He knows I'm not exactly the poster boy for conventional anything. And honestly, I don't care what he thinks, not if it means hiding this." "This," I echoed, smiling softly. "Us." He nodded. "Us." I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I wasn't trying to hide the way I felt. My face probably gave away more than I realized. How much I wanted this, how long I'd waited for something I thought I couldn't have. I used to rehearse it in my head, I confessed, voice low. All the ways I could maybe tell you, but I always backed out. I was scared of losing what we had. "You never had to be scared of me," he said, brushing his thumb gently along the back of my hand. "I was just waiting for you to catch up." That made my heart stutter. I leaned in, resting my head briefly on his shoulder, breathing him in. His scent was familiar. Engine grease, old cologne, something earthy. And it grounded me in a way nothing else ever had. "Think your guest room's still available?" I asked after a moment. "Only if you promise not to steal all the pillows." Again. No promises. We both laughed, quiet and full, like everything inside us had unknotted. We sat like that until the sun started creeping toward afternoon, and shadows shifted again. Eventually we stood and wandered back into the house, brushing shoulders and trading quiet smiles like secrets. The unspoken weight that had always sat between us was gone, replaced by something warmer, lighter. There was still a long road ahead, conversations to have, people to tell, logistics to figure out, but none of that felt overwhelming anymore. Not with him beside me. For the first time in years, the future didn't look like something to avoid. It looked like something we'd build together. Later that afternoon, we found ourselves back under the hood of the car, the one that started all this. The sun was dipping lower now, casting amber light across the driveway, turning grease stains and rust into something almost beautiful. Jordan was crouched beside me, passing me tools without needing to be asked, like he always had. But this time, everything felt different. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in the quiet certainty that came with finally saying the truth out loud. His knee pressed against mine every so often, and I didn't flinch like I used to. I didn't pull away. Instead, I leaned into the small contact like it was second nature, because now it was. "Okay, try it," I said, wiping my hands on a rag and standing back as he slid into the driver's seat. The engine sputtered once, then roared to life. He stuck his head out the window, eyes wide with mock shock. "What? You actually fixed it? Miracles do happen." I grinned, shaking my head. "Don't act surprised. I was always the brains in this operation." "You were? The guy who once installed a carburetor upside down." "That was once, and it was your instructions I followed." "Exactly. My fault for trusting you." He stepped out of the car, wiping his hands on his jeans as he came around to stand beside me. For a moment we just stood there, watching the car idle, the soft rumble settling into the background. Then, without saying a word, he reached for my hand. His fingers slid through mine like they belonged there. No hesitation this time. Just the quiet click of something locking into place. We didn't talk about labels or tell each other what came next. We didn't need to. Not yet. Just being here. Holding hands in the fading light was enough. But after a few minutes, he looked over, his thumb brushing slow circles across the back of my hand. "Come back next weekend?" he asked, voice softer now, more serious. "Even if there's nothing to fix?" I looked at him, and the weight of everything, every missed chance, every unsaid thing, settled into something solid and steady in my chest. "Yeah," I said. "Next weekend, and the one after that." He smiled, that wide, boyish grin that used to knock the breath out of me when I wasn't allowed to feel that way. Now I could just let it. I could look at him, smile back, and not pretend anymore. As we walked back toward the house, hand in hand, the sky lit up in streaks of pink and gold, like the world itself was giving us its quiet blessing. Nothing flashy, just a soft, steady promise that things were changing, and that change wasn't always something to fear. He squeezed my hand once, and I squeezed back. No words. No need. We didn't have everything figured out. There were questions we hadn't answered, paths we hadn't even seen yet. But we'd started something real, something that had waited quietly in the shadows for years. And now, we were finally stepping into the light. Together.